You're listening to another episode of the Two Act Podcast, discussion on anime, cinema, and TV. I'm your co host, Adi. And as always, I'm joined here today with my other co host, gothjon. And we're also joined by a special guest, again, joining us second time on the show, my close friend, Tao. Welcome to the show, everyone. How's everyone going?
Good.
Great.
Again.
Great. Well, glad that, Tao, that you could join Jon, finally. We're all in this show together.
Yeah,
I believe you
we're
missed out
now
on the
not
last-
on separate tracks. We're not on different railroads.
Exactly. Well, great to have everyone in the same room for the first time. So we've picked a very unique film to talk about today. We're going to be talking about a French-Japanese production animation film called Willow Sleeping Woman, directed by Pierre Földes, based on the legendary Korean novelist Haruki Murakami's short stories anthology of the same name. This film released in 2023. I remember watching it a couple of years ago in the cinema and it enchanted me back then, and it sort of left its mark since. It's a really elusive film to find. Sometimes we have to go through hoops to get this, but I'll just read a very brief synopsis and then we'll go straight to opening thoughts. So, a lost cat, a voluble giant frog, and a tsunami help an unambitious salesman, his frustrated wife, and a schizophrenic accountant save Tokyo from an earthquake and find meaning in their lives. So, let's get into opening thoughts. Anyone, whoever wants to jump in, what did you guys think of Willow Sleeping Woman?
Your fabled gothjon will do his first impression. So, this one is kind of weird. It's like one of those weird dreams where if you told a friend about the said dream, it would sound like silly and nonsensical. It's just like your subconscious trying to like figure something out. And in the process, it's nothing but it's confusing to the dreamer when they wake up and they're like, what the fuck? Why was my landlord helping me build a golf cart? Like it's like one of those. That's what it kind of feels like for me.
I agree. I think it's a very, like I mentioned, enchanting and disorienting surrealist work. I am familiar of some of Murakami's works. I've not read all of his novels, but I am a big admirer of this writer. He's written some of the most captivating, mysterious fiction that we've ever had access to. One of my other favorite films, a Korean film called Burning, is also loosely adapted from one of Murakami's stories. So I'm really happy to see that this author is getting his work adapted in fascinating ways in cinema. And this time we get it through a animation. It's kind of it's hard to describe how this film is. Like you said, Jon, I think it's very enchanting and it's very mysterious. It's like a dream, exactly like a dream filled with imagination. I think it captures this sort of existential dread within us, but also captures how vivid our senses are, our imaginations are through these, mundane characters living in Tokyo. And they're all interconnected through this event of an earthquake. And the aftershocks of that sort of manifest in different ways for each character. And they interweave through interesting ways. But, Tao, what did you think? What was your impressions? Because I remember recommending you this film a few weeks ago, and I'm actually quite surprised that you went ahead and watched it. Thank you again for joining us.
Oh, no worries. Thanks for inviting me again. No, this is not, like, a few weeks ago wasn't the first time you invited me. Like, first time you invited me was like about 2 years ago. I ignored you.
Was it? For what?
Yeah, I can't remember, but you said,
wait, I invited you for 2 years ago for a podcast?
No, watching this film?
Oh, right. Yeah. I did mention it back then.
Yes, you said you should watch this. So I was like, yeah, sure. Like any a lot of the recommendations.
Well, I don't blame you, man. Sea of recommendations everywhere.
But then I don't know. It was a weekend. I got some free time in the morning, so I was like, why not? I should just watch it. But because I knew it was made by the original story is written by Murakami. Also, he's part of the writer, and I was a big fan when I was in high school. I read a few of his books. I was, really big fan of his literature. I found them quite interesting. And then I watched the film. I was like, I'm not surprised. That's just him, being Murakami. But yeah, my first impression, I'd say very similar to John's impression. But at the same time, if you ask me, okay, how to describe this film, like, the good practice is how do you summarize it in one sentence? I cannot. I think that's a characteristic of his style, that you read one of his books and someone will just come to you and ask, what do you remember about this book? What this book was about? And you just cannot answer that question, basically. You feel like you've gone through a journey and then you woke up but you don't remember anything. That's how I feel like it. So this is the second time I watch it, and I'm like, okay, now I can see you have to really, destruct the dialogues and really read every dialogue and to figure out like what he might have meant, by saying it a specific way. I guess that's like, but I mean, that doesn't matter. I think it's very interesting. It gave me this I think there's more to it, but I don't know what it is. I'm not sure you know what I mean. But
Yeah, I think it's a film like I can totally see. So I totally get if anyone who watches this film and thinks this is just pretentious bullshit, and this is just like trying to take a minimalist, stylistic approach and pack it with like really deep themes such as existentialism and the dread and the mundane lifestyle that people have. I totally get if it's not a film that's for everyone. I personally was really fascinated by the movie. I think it captures facets of reality that I think in some ways are relatable. And when I say that, I mean there's certain feelings you may have experienced watching this film that you might be able to relate to, whether it's working a shitty job or whether it's like feeling alienated from your surroundings, or if it's, you know, certain things that I think we can all agree we might have experienced in some capacity at some point in our lives. But what really makes it all that more larger than life is the surrealism of it all. There's so much crazy surreal, and the animation is just beautiful for me. Like I am a big fan of the way this is animated.
I
It's
have
got
problems.
this. It's got this. I can see why you'd have problems, but it's got this like unconventional style to it, which is almost it's like hand painted, like watercolored, sort of watercolored painted style, but it's translucent at times. There's this blend of 2D, 3D going on. But more than anything, I was really amazed by the choice to have so many close ups of these characters. You don't see that very often with animation, at least, to do that. There's like some really increased amount of like extreme close-ups of the faces of these characters that we see. And I think that, you know, for me, the close-up is like the most important shot in film because it reveals everything. And I think the choice to do that here is very bold. But I won't ramble too much, but I'll take it. I'll get John's thoughts on this. What was your impression? You said you weren't a fan of the animation.
No, no. It's the same thing I didn't like in ping pong is ugly. All right, I'm going to go on a small diatribe. So the art style is kind of off-putting, and I find it really distracting. Like the background characters that are like drawn like translucent. And now that does seem like very like artistic in effect, but to me it just comes off as just lazy.
Lazy.
And yeah, that's kind of how I feel. And
Yeah.
like the style just falls flat on me. I don't think it adds anything for me. Because it's ugly and it makes the characters look like really realistic. I like that, but I don't like how it just feels it like adds to the style, but it's not something I like. Like
No,
I like a lot of
I get that from a visual point of view. Absolutely. Like you could make the case that, I mean, let's not forget this is not a Disney movie. they didn't have they didn't have the budget to go all out. But I will say that my impressions of the translucent background characters, I looked at it as sort of a reflection of like what the main characters are going through and what their surroundings feel like. I think one of the characters, obviously Komura, who's the bank worker whose wife decides to leave him, Kyoko. I think he feels completely alienated after experiencing the loss of like seeing his wife leave him and what that does to his like sense of identity. It alienates him, it makes him disconnected from his emotions. And I think it reflects well in like showing you that disconnection. But I get it. Like Tao, like from coming from an animation point of view, like what were your observations? Because you've actually studied 3D animation.
Oh well, I did 3D, so this is 2D is not my area.
But
Yeah.
you got a lot of like experience with like understanding animation and how that
I do
translates.
I do draw a lot like as a hobby, and I do like the art style. I mean, it's very unique, and I have to disagree with John with one point of the NPC characters. I don't think it's a lazy move, because if you look close, all the NPC characters, they're all actually moving and they're doing their own thing. That means all the transparent characters are actually being traced and animated like very carefully as well. So there are two spots. One is on the tube, on the train, sorry, on the metro, how do you call it, subway, and then when the Karigari is interacting with Frog, and he's
Katakiri, yeah.
like Katagiri is interacting with the frog, and they're like
Frog,
doing
not
something.
Mr. Frog.
Mr. Not
call
Mr.
him
Frog,
Mister.
Frog.
What the fuck was that frog?
Yeah, and they're interacting on the subway, and he's like pushing because he's been pushed, and he's trying to dodge, and the movement actually he pushed the other guys like a character next to him. He's falling asleep actually.
Yeah, it was like
when
falling
he's
asleep
done
and then
that.
he falls.
Yeah, he falls. And also at the pub when Komura was drinking alone, drinking the whiskey, and all the side characters, there's a couple
Yeah, the
behind
couple,
them.
the bartender.
Yeah, they're all like, they're doing their own thing. And from my understanding is if you can, it's very subtle. They must have animated it and then intentionally like made it very faint, so it just blends into the background. But then that doesn't mean it's easy to do, because it means like, because I see a lot of the Japanese animes, you just don't animate your NPCs. They'll be static. They'll be like a card or just a very simple representation or something. And then, but this one, actually all the NPCs are moving, which is crazy. And then they intentionally dial it down with I'm not sure the technique is called, I think I call it the outline tinting. Basically all the outlines of the main characters, the buildings, and the other NPCs, they're all colored. Their outlines are actually colored in a different hue and different brightness, which is very interesting because I've never seen anything like it. Is not technically watercolor. I think it's a combination of a color pencil style and watercolor, and which makes it very interesting because sometimes you see the outlines because we know, okay, let's draw a character, and then most of the time, I say 99% of the time, you see a cartoon character on the screen, they will have dark outlines. But in this show, you have so many various of color, and sometimes like the chicken wire is blue, just blue in outline. Then you have some ashtrays in white and some other objects in yellow and very like saturated, like Van Gogh. I'm sorry, John, maybe you have opinion with French people, but they do have this very interesting.
The only good thing the French gave us was Clair Obscur in recent memory.
I'm not sure that wins Game of the Year, but
It's
that's
winning Game of the
conversation to
Year.
have.
2025
conversation.
Game of the Year. VGA, you heard it now. And if it doesn't win, I will buy Adi a nickel. I'll buy him the last penny that got made in America.
I don't want to sidetrack, but touching on both of you's point, right? So I'll act as the mediator here.
Yeah.
I get both sides of you completely. Like John, I get your point of view as a viewer who's just trying to immerse himself in the animation. And Tao, I understand perfectly where you're getting at. In fact, this kind of reminded me of a Charlie Kaufman movie called Anomalisa, it's a stop motion like claymation animation film. It came out like in 2015, and it did something very interesting because there's only two characters in the film. There's a man and there's a woman. A middle-aged man who lives a dull life, and he encounters this woman who kind of affects his life in a way. And everyone else is got the same face. Every other character has the same face. They are in different shapes and forms, and they're all voiced by the same voice actor. And it's meant to, like, again, envelop you into this world of how everything feels the same when you're alienated. And I think, I feel that's kind of an artistic choice. Well, of course, whether or not you like that is going to be subjective, but from like the storyteller's point of view, I found it quite interesting. I like the idea of doing that. But it's a debate. Not everyone's going to agree and some are going to disagree. But I just wanted to put it out there that there were other stuff that I've seen that have done something similar like that, which makes, again, it adds to the whole themes and symbolisms. And there's a lot of symbolisms in this. I think the most recurring motif in this movie, and if you're familiar with Murakami's stories, are cats. You'll see that in every story he writes, there's always a cat appearing, and it's the same in this movie. You could say that it represents something, or you can make a case for what it means. I'm sure we'll get to that. But I wanted to get into characters. The film really has, I would consider the film to have like three main characters who we get to glimpse into their lives. The first being obviously Komura, who's like this, he's kind of a young, in his early 30s, mid 30s guy working in a bank whose wife decides to leave him after an earthquake where she can't stop watching the TV every day. And that's Kyoko, his wife. And you've got Mr. Katagiri, who's this middle-aged man who also works in the same bank, but he lives a very like lonely, miserable life. He's kind of, I think the movie, yeah, I don't even need to like describe it in depth. If you just watch if you just watch like a few scenes, you perfectly understand like what he's going through. But I wanted to get your opinions on like characters, and of course we see other characters like Frog and Worm, and there's some other interesting cameos of side characters that I liked that were, I don't know if they were fully developed, but they were interesting. And I must say, like, the movie picks a few short stories, I believe, from the book that it adapts. So it's not a complete straight adaptation, but it's linked to these three main characters and their stories. So what did you guys think of like characters? Whoever wants to chime in.
Oh, go for it.
Me? Oh, you go for it.
Okay, I'll go for it. All right. I like the old man, the wish granter, and that's just because he's kind of mysterious. And I like the really slutty redhead in the Love Hotel.
Yeah, I liked her a lot too. I liked her a
Yeah,
lot.
yeah, like that scene. As soon as I saw the octopus painting on the wall, and I was like, "Oh, I recognize that painting." I'm like, "Okay, well, I already know what's happening here."
You recognize that painting, huh? I wonder from
Yeah,
where.
yeah, I'm familiar with a lot of Japanese art. Like that
Mm.
particular painting, it comes to terms with like before Japan went like fully into the ecchi scene and the hentai scene. Like that was the only thing that existed. It was paintings that were very risque. There's a lot of them like that. They're octopuses and all sorts of crazy shit.
Yeah. The movie's quite bold with its themes. I think sexuality and there's a lot of like mature themes that are being explored. And I think they affect the characters. And I think it's refreshing that, animation can explore these things consistently and in a grounded way, in what having a surreal style. But like Tao, what was your thoughts on characters?
I like all the side characters and the main character. I don't know. I feel what's the banker guy? Katagiri. He's a
Gary?
quite interesting. Yeah, Mr. Katagiri is such an interesting guy, especially when he's looking in the mirror, reflecting about himself, saying how pathetic he is. I think that got me like so bad.
Yeah,
He's just
yeah,
like
it's a
how
powerful scene.
ordinary. Yeah, it's a very powerful scene. And then he said how pathetic he is, and he's less than ordinary. And the way he's describing himself is like, oh my god, it just I don't know. Like
It's
I think I'm a
brutal, isn't it? It's a brutal self-reflection, literal
exactly.
and like metaphorical self-reflection of his
Yeah.
life,
I think
which makes it all the
most
more
yeah,
interesting why he'd be picked by Frog.
yeah. I think he completes a full arc. Like I think he has an arc in this film, which makes me feel happy in the end for some reason. Because the other characters, I don't know, I have anything for them, but for Mr. Katagiri, I do feel for him, and I feel happy in the end because he got the promotion. Even he wasn't expecting that, or I don't think he was expecting anything. I think he wasn't even really thinking about like all these things before he's run into the obstacles such as the debt, and he got put in, he got cornered, and then somehow the imaginary or whatever frog, Mr. Frog, came around, and
Just
he
Frog.
started to develop just Frog. He started to develop this, you can call it illusion or whatever, or the sand dune from Dune, whatever. It's quite interesting. I like his arc. Yeah. But also, I also like this one side character who appeared just for 3 seconds, who's the chef. I'm not sure you remember him. It's an
Yeah,
interesting one
yeah. The
because
chef
he looks
from
he looks exactly like one of my friend who also a chef.
Oh,
And
really?
okay, I gotta be honest with you. I'm not sure whether he's ever gonna listen to this, but I think briefly we had a romantic relationship in high school. And then as a dude, and then he went to America and he became a chef and he looked exactly like this guy and he behaved exactly like this guy. That's crazy. And it was, yeah, it's strange. It's somehow the strangest thing I found about the show is how personal you can get and actually how it reflects to your reality. The biggest surprise was, sorry, I'm a bit sidetracked, but it's still related to the show because I watched it a few weeks ago, and then it was 2 weeks ago, and I was like, when they were talking about the bear situation, and the two girls found it funny. I was like, that's
Ringing the
interesting.
bell.
I didn't know like Japan they got bear problems. And then when I closed the film, I opened my phone. The first thing that popped up is bear attacks in Japan got severe recently. And it's actually this is a very big news recently, like the past few days. They actually deployed armies and shit to attack bears because they're just intruding the villages and shit recently. It's a very recent news.
That's wild. I had no idea that it was a real issue, but
I had no
I
idea.
found that story to be fucking hilarious. I love that story. I couldn't stop laughing at that scene where, she describes like
Yeah.
the whole bear and the bell.
You have
But,
to keep ringing the bell while you're having sex, otherwise you'll both get mauled by a bear.
Yeah. That's the only way to ward off the bear from entering your territory, I suppose.
I think that was one of the few times in the story where I was glued in paying attention. Like this film, I'm not the most artsy fartsy guy when it comes to film. So when not as like a dig or anything towards you guys, but like that and like the old man story and the frog stuff, like that's the parts where I'm like trying to figure out what's going on, and I'm like, ooh, this is pretty interesting. Where's this going? And then to find out the frog is just his psychosis, like him being schizophrenic, that I didn't even figure that out in the context, which I think is kind of funny.
Yeah, it is. I think it's like a manifestation of his own like psyche, but it kind of makes me think that it's not at the same time, because if it was just an illusion, like problems wouldn't just like his problem with the bank gets resolved. And you see that scene where another character, obviously you know that it's real because the person he's having an issue with from the bank who he's loaned the money to sends his liaison who tells him not to ever send Frog
All
to
right,
his
I've had
home.
canon for Frog now.
Yeah.
It's Tyler Durden.
Yeah, he is
We're in
kind of
Fight
Tyler
Club.
Durden.
He's Fight
He's
Club.
kind of yeah.
He
He's
showed
kinda
up
Tyler
in a
Durden.
frog costume and then scared the shit out of the guy. Sometimes
What's
you
the
got to
first
make your
rule
own
of Fight
sense.
Club? What's the
We're going
first
to talk
rule of
about
Fight
Fight
Club?
Club. We already ruined it.
So that, and also then in the end, he speaks to his employer, his boss, who tells him, "Oh, you've done a fine job, like resolving this case." So I think like at first I was like, "Nah, this can't be real. This is imagination." And then I thought, well, if it was imagination, then how are these things happening? And how is it actually reflecting reality? And then it made me think about the power of how like imagination is such a strong sensation that we can use to benefit us, and people use it to think the worst. But I think it's fascinating how the movie like explores imagination. And I think there's a line where Frog says like, and I think he's quoting like Ernest Hemingway, who was like a literary writer,
He
but he was
also
talking about
quoted
how
Nietzsche, which really threw me
Nietzsche, yeah,
off. I got really threw off. I was like, Nietzsche,
yeah,
what the
Nietzsche,
hell?
yeah.
Yeah.
But he mentioned something along the lines where like our victories and our losses exist in our imagination. And I thought that was such a thought provoking line, because it kind of does. I kind of agree with that statement. But I don't know if you guys felt like that, or if you guys thought it was just, malarkey, seeing Mr. Katagiri constantly being, you know, harangued by this gigantic frog at not just his home but also his workplace. I think a lot of people, I don't know if you guys noticed, but obviously you must have noticed. The first scene with Katagiri is him, I think he's falling asleep in the subway, in the metro, and you see he's having a dream where he's naked inside a giant worm that's going through the skyline of Tokyo. So I think that was like, again, it sets up the whole story of like what we're gonna see. But like, I don't know what was that. You guys have anything to say about like the whole frog stuff?
I have nothing
He's
to
voiced by
add.
the director, by the way.
Okay. I just thought it was weird. And I didn't really look in too much into it. I was just like, weird for the sake of weird. Awesome.
Yeah, it gets. I'm not surprised because I know he wrote it, and then it's just like 19. What's the book called? 19Q4. Is it called
18Q4.
1Q
184. Yeah,
1Q84?
1Q84. That's
1Q84.
correct.
It's like exactly that. The main character step into that parallel universe and is not getting back, and then all sorts of weird things are happening. I feel like at that point, snap, he's in the parallel universe. That's it. But then I think it's more for this one. I think it's more like metaphor-like things. I don't know. Sorry, I'm very bad at describing abstract things.
The movie
Sounds
is
like this
really
film.
hard to describe. The movie is one big, gigantic piece of abstract art. I think we can talk about like some of the weird shit that happens because there's definitely a few that I had. If you guys thought like Frog was the weirdest part of the story, I wanted to bring up some instances and see what you guys had to say about it. The one that came to my mind was obviously what heck was in the box that Komura's colleague gives him, where he asks him to like do him a favor and deliver it to his sister in Hokkaido. Obviously, when he shakes the box, he can't really like hear anything. So again, box might have been empty. If it was it just a, it was just a metaphor or some for like how empty you are or some shit like that. I don't know. We'll talk about it. Then there was also, I believe, The Wish, which I think was the most annoying one for me. The fact that the fact that I didn't know what The Wish was with
I,
Kyoko,
I
the
think
old
that
man.
was the whole
That was a
point.
very fascinating character.
Yeah, I have a theory though. Okay, I can share it later.
Okay.
Continue.
And obviously, you get that earlier scene with the kid who Komura, you know, sort of takes him to the hospital, and as a, I think he's a relative who has a ear problem, and that's where he kind of like gets flashbacks of his wife who used to be friends with another dude. They were like three good friends, and she was into his best friend and he was into Kyoko, and then his friend Hiroshi ends up dying in a motorcycle accident, and then they end up getting married, Komura and Kyoko, I believe. So that was like one of the first points of the plot. And also you had that young girl at the end
That was weird.
who's really weird.
That's
Yeah,
really weird.
That's
it
really
was
weird.
really
That
weird.
was some shit that you would hear from like a on the spectrum, like 30-something-year-old guy say to a young girl, not a young girl say to an older man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And I too agree, John. I think the best one of one of my favorite characters was definitely the red hair chick.
Yeah.
I thought she was really. I liked her. I liked her energy. I liked her personality. It was very alluring. And I don't know. At first, I was like, did this guy like tell him to go to Hokkaido just to get laid? Was
Probably.
he like telling his
I was like,
sister, hey, just like
why?
get him
I thought it
laid?
was going to be a
He's
three-way.
Why?
They went
I
to a
did
love
too.
hotel. You know what goes on in love hotels. At least as a consumer of Japanese movies and anime.
I just think how nice it is if that was to be true, that his colleague was so considerate as like, hey man, you look like shit. You look like you're depressed about your marriage and whatnot. How about you go do me a favor and I'll, get you laid. But
That's why the box was empty.
oh, was it? See,
That's
the thing.
why the box was empty. I
That's
think
the
it's
thing.
like Tarantino's box. Like you're not supposed to know what's inside.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Marcellus's briefcase, wasn't it?
Yep.
And from Pulp Fiction,
Pulp
I believe.
Fiction.
Yeah.
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 That's not the point. It's empty. It's Schrodinger's box. It's whatever you want it to be and nothing at the same time.
Yes. That's actually a very perfect example to call it that. But what was your what did you guys think of all these like weird? This is all weird. I don't know how to describe it. It's so weird. But it's so fascinating.
It's annoying but fascinating. Yeah.
I find it annoying in the way that I'm having trouble like trying to tie it all like together. Other than the frog storyline, because that's the only one that we got like a full like follow through. And at times that's why I was having trouble like paying attention and keeping in the story because of that. And then you get something like The Old Man where it's just intriguing and you're like, "Whoa, what was the wish?" And you never find out what the wish is. And that's okay.
You do have the flashback in between, though.
Yeah.
But between he's clapping his hand, or about to clap, and then clap. In between, those are flashing frames, and you see the car crash,
Yeah,
and
you see Hiroshi
dies.
dying.
Yeah. Is that Harushi?
Yeah, that's the best friend who she was
Oh
in love
yeah,
with.
yeah, yeah. And then you have all that. I was like, it got me thinking, you know. So what was her wish? And then, you know, I have a, you know, not a conclusion, but I think it might be what she wished for was she wants get married to a gentle and loving guy, and that's exactly what she got.
Mhm.
And because the ex-boyfriend, whoever died, wasn't a gentle, loving guy. He
Mm.
probably was a douche or something. I don't know. But
So she
maybe
wanted
that's
a nice guy, and then she got bored of a nice guy and decided to dump him.
yeah, and then that's exactly what she wished for. And then even she said it's nothing wrong with her life, but why she's feeling like so after, you know, seeing the news of the earthquake, and she started to be, you know,
What did you guys think about the earthquake? Because I think the earthquake is probably the only connecting thread for
It
this
was
story.
weird. It was at times I was wondering if it was even going to happen
Yeah.
I
before we
think
got to a point where
that's something very unique to the
Yeah.
Japanese and Japanese culture. I think very unique to them
Yeah,
because I don't think it's
there's
yeah.
any place where you live on like a fault line, it becomes like a big thing of your culture. Like California, they have like an entire like drills and stuff like that.
Yeah, the tectonic plates in
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and
California are
it's a regular occurrence. You'll feel like a slight tremor, and everyone will that isn't like a tourist. Tourists will probably be freaking out, but the regular people that live there are like, "Oh yeah, we know this is nothing."
Yeah, but in the movie,
Yeah.
there was an earthquake that caused a lot of, well, I think caused disaster because it's constantly playing in the news. In fact, that's what Kyoko keeps watching in her home on the TV, which is the news on the earthquake, about the earthquake. And you get these like constantly, you get these interviews of like all the civilians who were affected, whether stuck in the rubble or they were rescued or they lost whatever they had. And I don't know, it's kind of like a constant in your face theme playing in the back. Obviously, the aftershocks of that does take effect because it's, I don't know if you'd call it a domino effect, but you do sort of see that it starts to like create this chain of events for like all these characters because that's what Kyoko gets disoriented with watching and decides to leave. Komura gets alienated. Atagiri gets confronted by Frog to help him, you know, save the next disaster from happening, which is Worm. And yeah, it all sort of ripples down one after the other. I don't know how consistent this feels, but like I don't know. I thought about it a lot, but I couldn't really say much besides like that. It starts to create these characters to have their manifestations of their psyche come to life.
All right, to really throw you off kilter, if you had one wish, what would you wish for?
To have infinite wishes.
You can't wish for that.
Says who?
Nice one, Adi. Nice
A
try.
wish is a wish.
Let's say it's an evil djinn or the monkey's paw.
Nah, now you're making up the rules, buddy. You didn't say that.
Okay,
You
okay.
didn't
All
say
right,
that.
all right, all right. Let me rephrase it. Okay, you have one wish.
But
and
I already said
you
you could ask Tao. You could ask
Okay,
Tao.
all right, Tal. All right, what do you got? I got my answer.
Okay.
Okay, you can't ask for infinite wishes. Tal, what would you wish for?
I wish I be satisfied. Doesn't matter.
Okay.
Doesn't matter
Okay.
the material, money. Wish I would be satisfied.
To always be satisfied or just be satisfied?
It's more be satisfied. There's
Okay.
always a limit. I will
right.
die. I will age.
You
all
just
that.
want to be satisfied, not always
Exactly.
satisfied. Okay.
Because I'm a crazy person, my wish would be just for straight up immortality.
Immortality, bro.
Yep.
Okay.
It would probably be suffering because of how fleeting our lives. That's how we enjoy life because we know how short it is.
Mhm.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
to just never be afraid of just dying, just being immortal.
That's reasonable. I understand that.
Mm. Immortal. I mean, we've seen so many films where characters like wish for that or attain that.
Yeah, they like a
And,
vampire or like a god or something. Yeah.
Yeah, it could be it could
And
happen in so many different ways, of course.
yeah,
Like,
and they're always an interesting storyline, and you're always intrigued about how that character was formed.
yeah, I guess the origins of it all. Just look at Dorian Gray, one of the greatest literature adaptations from Oscar Wilde. He lived forever, but the twist was he had a painting of himself, a portrait that aged, while his body looked completely young.
Wow.
So there's so many. It's like I can give you so many references of like immortality as a theme. It's always been there. I think it's like you're right. I think part of what makes the human experience so valuable is that you know that you're gonna die someday, and that is like the whole stoic principle that you know that you're gonna die someday. So you want to make your life like you want to wake up every day knowing that, so you don't like take it for granted. And then you look at these characters in this film, it doesn't seem like they value that. It seems like they're completely just on autopilot, living mundane lives. There's no sense of like, you look at Komura. He's been working at that bank for like 7 years. He's still young. He could still have a good career if he wanted to do literature, which I think he did in his early background. He also played the piano, but he chooses the safe route to just stick with the job, even though there's like you don't really see him being passionate about it. It's just a status thing, I think. Until in the end, you see that his mom offers him an opportunity to write like poetry for a publication for girls, which I think he refuses. But
Easy job. I could do that job. I used to write poetry. I'd be fine.
And then you look at Katagiri, like what a miserable existence he's having, and until whatever that encounter is kind of changes everything. I don't know if it's the best thing to do, to stick at that company and live that life, but I know Japan has a reputation. I read somewhere there's like one older employee in Japan who's hired like in 49% of companies who has no active duties, and they're just there. They're just employed. They just get a paycheck. So I found that funny. And I looked at Katagiri and he's like completely overworked. And
Well, yeah, their work-life balance is awful. They go to drinks right after, and then they come back in the morning bright and early, bushy-tailed.
I think the film does say a lot about that, though,
Yeah.
about that culture, that work culture, and how it like. You look at the marriage, right? They're still a young couple, like Komura and Kyoko, but their marriage just feels empty.
They look off.
Yeah.
They look very
It looks
off.
so off. I think I was just thinking, wow, how brutal it is that she tells him like you're just a chunk of air. Like,
Yeah.
damn. Like, imagine like waking up one day from your marriage and having your like partner tell you like, yeah, I'm leaving because you're just living with you, just like living with a chunk of air.
That's actually mentioning that's actually a very unique insulting term, or like sort of a mechanism in Japan. So it's like if like the worst swearing word in Japanese is not like "can't" or "fuck you," that kind of terms. So if in Japan, if you want to insult someone, you just tell them you're nothing, and they will be so pissed because that's way worse than saying you're a cunt. It's funny. I don't know. There's something about their culture, man. It's a very. I think saying he's a chunk of air is like a very, very insulting term in Japan. I think they yeah, they will be angry, and even she said that he's still, kind of have this like peaceful state. That's crazy because most people be like mad just people by saying that to them. Yeah, it's like
I mean,
10 times worse
it's
than
kind of
saying you're a
it's
cunt.
kind of a brutal insult without any like explicit like words. So
Yeah, but I know like there's people told me like that hurts Japanese the most when you say they're pathetic and nothing.
wow,
They're
okay.
competent or something.
I
Which
think
is
that's interesting. It says a lot about like the culture.
Yeah, yeah. It's like you have a workaholic culture and everyone just trying to prove they are valuable to a whole, to a company, to, the nation or whatever. I don't know what it is, but when you say someone has no value, oh my God. And that means so much to them. That means like, but I don't know. I think that's one part of the film that he's trying to say. And also about Murakami and his background. His dad's trying to force him to, when he's a kid, his dad's forced him to read like traditional Japanese literature and stuff like that. And he said he's never got into it. He couldn't literally get into it. And until he, read a lot of the Western literatures and books, and he got like fascinated pretty much. And even in the interviews, so he won his first reward when he's 29. But I remember this at this event, he said he never found traditional Japanese fascinating, which is very funny. And you can see a lot of the Western influence, like, the main character, he's eating pasta, and the girl, Kyoko, she's working in an Italian restaurant. A lot of very Western elements, and that because his main influence actually from the Western literature, and then he's blend in with a lot of the more stuff across the past 3 centuries. But yeah, it's an interesting one, knowing his background, and then you can kind of connect him with this struggle of being lonely-ish. I don't know what it is. The film is too
being
weird.
Lonely, being a regular guy. I mean, Komura is. How do we even feel about Komura? Like we mentioned, I think there's some sympathy you could have for Katagiri, looking at his condition, but Komura is, for the most part, doesn't seem like, he's got
Pathetic.
He's got issues. He's pathetic, isn't he? Anyone else find it weird that he doesn't even like care to look for his cat, Mr. Watanabe?
Yeah, I was like, why are you not? You should have looked for a cat like immediately. That should be the first thing you should have done. When he knew his cat is missing. So
it's probably good he's pathetic. Otherwise, he would have probably put some moves on that 16-year-old girl.
Absolutely. That would have
been awful.
Dark turn.
That'd be a different film, man.
Well, like the way that conversation was going, what am I supposed to think? I've seen all sorts of weird shit in this film so far. I've seen a talking frog. I've seen, surrealist like paintings moving everywhere. I've seen all this weird shit, and I'm expecting anything and everything because I've gotten to see all these weird things.
Yeah. Also, that boy talking to him at the airport bus stop, and Junpei, and such a weird guy. Was so
weird. That underage girl, I just would have walked away from. I was like, nope. I'm not going to jail. See you later.
It's funny. It's funny you say that, John, because she tells him, "Oh, you shouldn't be standing there by the abandoned house because someone's going to call the cops on you. That's what usually happens. So why don't you come sit with me?"
And then she talks about like digging inside a dead body, and I'm just like,
yeah,
what the fuck? It was weird.
And he picks up that magazine with it's kind of like a porno mag. Yeah. It's like he just looks at it and he's like, okay, whatever, and he keeps it back on the floor. Some really, I don't know, strange things. Like what was our thoughts on like the surrealist stuff? There are a lot of like sequences in the forest where he's like walking, he sees this blue cat, and there's a lot of like nude female figures popping up as a recurring like theme. Like visually, there's something going on. I couldn't always piece it. I can't always piece it together. Like I don't understand everything in this movie that happens, but
for me, it just feels really random. I can't see anything like past like the surface level. It just kind of feels like an adjudicated mishmash of stories. That's kind of what it feels like to me. And a lot of like the surrealist imagery in it doesn't really help me with the through line. I'm just I'm on the river along for the ride, and hopefully it gets somewhere where I can enjoy it.
I think it's a very literal sort of visual presentation of, when you're describing your feelings, and you cannot, the thing is, feelings is because they cannot be described by a language or a specific type
So true.
of media. And that's why they remain feelings. That's why we invent literature. And then every time we describe a feeling, I feel this emptiness is feeling like me walking down like an infinite stair and into a room have nothing but blue, and you see this cat. It's very natural if you write it that way, but you would literally translate that into image. That's exactly what we saw, and you would be confused. And that,
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, if I can imagine how this thing was literally written, and that will make it would not
No
no
sense.
sense, but I would get it, because every time when you try to describe your feeling, you cannot. You have to, use a very literal, like a very abstract. I don't know. So I don't know. You get me. A very ridiculous way to emphasize how you feel. Not it get you close somewhere, to get someone feel the same way. But then, we're never going to feel the same way. We never feel the same about stairs. We never, we don't feel the same about the color blue, because our own memories associated to the blue are different. Our own memories associated to the stairs are different. And, I like sketch like rough animation style. John doesn't, when then at that point we disassociate with ourselves with the animation already, and then at the same time you kind of deliver the feeling in a completely different language as well. It was like, yeah, it's very hard. So I guess the intention to make it abstract is just to make it that you are not really thinking about it, and you just try to feel, so dissociate yourself from the story.
No, it's polarizing for sure because like what I will give it is like when I watch it, like it's like things that there's certain things that I can not directly relate to, but I can sort of like understand in a way, whether it's like the themes of alienation or existentialism. I'm not gonna go on a fucking fake ass r- talk about existentialism and how we're all like feeling existential dread. I think everyone experiences these themes or these feelings in different ways, in different capacities. But I think that's the thing. It's hard to describe it because it's just like it's a feeling. And I think that themes of loneliness, alienation, all of that is very major and very recurring in this movie with the characters. And there's certain moments that looking at the way they were reacting, I could sort of feel it. Now I can't directly describe that experience because again, like you mentioned, it's a very subjective thing. But I think that's where the strength of the movie lies, is like it's kind of an experience film. It's not a film that you watch to follow the plot, because if you're looking at it from how that connects to this from A to B, it won't make any sense. Like I still have difficulty understanding the
It's
presence of the
irritating.
cat.
Yeah, it's irritating.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say
Bothering.
it's not like it rage baits me into being infuriated, but it does make me question like why is there such a constant emphasis on certain things, and that's like left. It's kind of left for you to interpret that, really, because the movie doesn't decide to do it. And looking at the author, it's interesting because we could just say like, yeah, this is just a bad like storytelling choice, but actually, this is kind of how the short stories are. They're very random. They're very surreal, and it kind of it's very hard to describe Murakami's work. Sometimes you could watch some of his stuff, so read some of his stuff, and see how that's been adapted into films, and it's kind of the same thing. It makes it very very puzzling experience, but the feelings you get out of it sometimes can be very interesting to experience. but it may not be for everyone, of course.
Yeah. It feels like a bad dream. Something like
A
yeah.
bad
Alright.
dream.
All right, I'm ready
Yeah.
for final thoughts / ratings. If you boys are,
Yep.
Yeah, we could go into ratings.
I think we should sandwich mine in the middle. Just for it sounded like you guys liked it a lot more than I did.
No, just say it, John.
All right, I'm gonna say it. You
Go ahead. Rip the
coerced it
bandit.
out of me. All right. This movie is like a fever dream inside a crazy person's mind. The pacing is slow as molasses, and it jumps all around a lot. This was a 108-minute movie, and it felt like a 2.5 hour movie for me. Like we said earlier, not really a narrative. It kind of jumps all over the place, and it's surreal and confusing and subjective. Didn't like the art style. I don't really even know if I enjoyed this film, but they did find a cat inside a suitcase, so it gets a bonus point. 4 out of 10.
Wow.
4 out of 10. Okay. Interesting, John. That's kind of like why we picked this film, because I knew it will spark like some very polarizing
A conversation, Adi. That's what this is.
a conversation.
Not an argument. It's a conversation.
No. It's not. We're not arguing about anything. I get your point of view. That's completely valid. I think that it's a very ambiguous movie. The closing moments of the film leave you with a feeling like a mood than a message. I like the animation because it's fluid and dreamlike, but it mirrors like the emotional drift of the characters who are searching for something undefined. And I think that's the main thing. Is like we don't know what the message of the movie is because what the characters are seeking themselves, they don't know what they want because it's undefined. So by the end, it's like what stands out most is how the film threads together multiple Murakami tales into a single emotional like thread. There isn't a neat resolution, but there's a sense of like a quiet transformation. I feel like the characters don't dramatically change, yet something inside like subtly, undeniably shifts. The film suggests that even small I feel like it suggests that even small internal movements matter. And like, I don't know what the message of the film is. Like, I don't know if I could summarize it well. It's like, there isn't a big answer to it. But if you're looking for the meaning, it's in like small, surreal, often like inexplicable moments that nudge us forward. And I think that's what I looked at when I watched the movie. It leaves you like feeling strangely calm, but also very unsettled, but in this like reflective, emotional state with the texture of the world. I'm gonna give it. I'm gonna give it a 7 out of 10.
Wow. Big contrast. Love that.
Yeah,
Is it my turn now?
Yep.
yeah.
You can go anytime you'd
Oh.
like.
Okay. Yeah, all right. I've been rambling this entire time. But I liked animation style, like Addy. And then I do find it interesting that it brings it all sorts of emotions, and it got me thinking about things. And also I can relate a lot of the stuff with my life. That a lot of things are going on in my life as well. I feel like sometimes I'm just a dead person during the day. Sometimes I feel pathetic for myself, that in confidence. I can relate to a lot of the characters, and I found those mysterious events very fascinating, like the wish, Mr. Frog or Frog. They're very interesting. I wish those things could pop into my life and shed a bit of light and tell me what to do. Things like that. I wish they're weird things happening, but they're not, unfortunately. But
Well, let
this
us
film,
know when you see a frog so we can get you a psychiatrist.
will do that, John. I think the point is because those things are not actually happening. That's why this film got made, and I watched this film, and this film is weird enough that gave me these feelings, and it gave me a very unique experience, and is different from all that. And actually appreciate this, all the, you know, I think that it's well designed. It's just not in a traditional way. And also I need to thank Adi for recommending it to me and bringing those tiny little emotions, fractures, pieces for me to it's like a puzzle for me to solve. It's interesting. I would give it 6 out of 10 because I think the story is a bit not lazy, but I think it can be done with better arcs, in my opinion. Because right now they're like, it's just all over the place. It's just too confusing, and like I have to agree with John that it feels like 2.5 hour film, and
the pacing is so slow.
Yeah, I think for that, I think it can be done a lot better in terms of the storytelling. But I do like the art style. I don't think it's terrible animation, like film. But only is I wish it could have done better with a lot of the. But I mean, like I said, it's not for everyone, and I'm kind of like stuck in the middle. But it's definitely better than a 5.
I think if you add our scores up and get an average, it's like a 5.
Yeah,
out of 10.
Roughly.
Which is fine, because a movie like this is very polarizing. The people that really like it will really like it, and then the people that don't get it aren't going
will
to
not get it. They're not going to get it. It's like I know what the term is. It's a Marmite film.
Okay.
You know, you either hate it or love it. There's no in between. And I think, you know, the reason why I wanted to do it is because this film might not be the best piece of like animation storytelling that must have come out in the last 10, 20 years, but I think that I feel like it's kind of like under the radar. It's really elusive to find or to come across unless you're like,
you ain't gonna find a torrent of it.
yeah, unless you're like a diehard Murakami fan, or you know,
yeah.
you
Everything
like
I saw for this was the ebook, and I was like, I'm not gonna read.
And I think the story is a bit different, isn't? And the actual book, they actually mentioned the blind widow, the blind widow. What's the
blind
name?
widow. Blind Willow.
Right, Blind Willow. That I suck in English. And Sleeping Woman. That actually talks about that. And yeah, there's no mention to the Blind Willow at all.
No, it's not. It's not a straight. It's not a straight adaptation of the short stories. I think there's multiple short stories.
Yeah.
The film takes like 2 or 3 and tries to do its own thing, which I guess is, you know, it's like that's an adaptation of a story. So we don't know. Maybe it could have worked better as like a TV series with
or
like
a short
mythology, or even a short film.
Like every one of these stories could have easily been a short film.
Yeah,
it could be
better arcs or something, or bigger surprises, and just end there. And you know, when you wish for something, end done.
Yeah. But I like the fact that you asked me if I could wish for one thing, and then you backtracked, and you're like, no, sorry, evil genie cannot grant you this wish.
It's because
like, fuck you. I wish for infinite wishes. I can do whatever I want.
You did the total thing where I have a force
field. I played
field.
4D chess. No. I played 8D chess.
8D. Okay, Lelouch, calm down. You're like, I don't even get that reference, and I'm like, that's fine.
Yeah, I don't get that reference.
It's Code Geass, one of the greatest anime ever.
I need to see that anime. I haven't seen it.
There's 2 seasons in a movie.
2 seasons in a movie.
Yep.
That's how many years in One Piece language?
Like a year and a half.
Oof.
God.
Or are we talking about filler or no filler?
I meant filler piece.
Sorry, filler piece? Okay, that's like 4 years.
Sorry, One Piece. One Piece? No. Sorry, One Piece. Sorry, One Piece fans. Didn't mean to say One Piece.
One Piece is great. You just got to have a filler guide.
Just with most animes of the ancient time.
Yep, of
But,
the Shonen Jump time.
Shonen Jump time. Yeah. But that concludes our review. And thank you to Tao for joining us for this episode.
Thank you very much. I'll see you later.
I'm going to go have a great legendary dream that won't make any sense to even me. See you, Space Cowboy.